Wukong means comprehend nothingness. But if there's nothing, what is to comprehend? When I was little, there's no lightsaber, but this. And since the launch of Black Myth Wukong, it's like people are peeking into my childhood. But it does make me reflect on my childhood superhero, which is a monkey monk. Like, do I really understand him? How does he influence me? Maybe visiting viral game locations will help. But the first hurdle is they're all over this province, which is the size of Britain. But one city was favored by the production team, and that's Datong. Literally, from Beijing to Datong, it is a journey to the west. In this 2-hour train ride, I was reminded of the true meaning of Shanxi province, which is mountain west. West of Mount Taihang, which keeps out the soft, warm ocean wind and creating this tough terrain. Upon arrival, Datong seemed like a pretty standard Chinese city, but wait till you get to its core. Look at it, I'm here! She really want to get some nice shot before the sun sets. Inside of this Asian city alone, there are 4 Wukong game sites. But today is pretty late, let's just appreciate the city itself. There are so many layers of it. I think it's the 2nd wall, and I'm going to the 3rd wall, and yeah, that's the ancient city. Now I'm finding my way to get onto this wall. Wow, look at the middle line of the ancient city! We've arrived at the South Gate. And you wouldn't think you could do this. Riding on the Weixin Wall! Asian city. I see that in Beijing. Wow! Loving this. This is really reminding me of Rome. I checked, it's built in the 4th century, the end of the 4th century, and it's said to be the largest capital city in the world at the time. I wasn't expecting any of this because Datong is not even known as a historic city, so I was shocked to learn that it's once the capital city of northern China. That explains why the game team favored this place. I spent about 20 minutes walking back to where we began. I sat and waited in the cold wind so that I could take you to this lantern show. I just finished the Lantern Festival and I came to this. It's quite insane to think that the biggest city in the 4th century is walkable from this to Beijing today. And also people are very grateful to this Mayor Geng, who presided in the restoration of the old city wall. Many years ago, it's unimaginable to many people to spend so much money on reparation and conservation. Here comes my favorite thing to do during travel, which is stamps. These are the stamps I got before. You see it? Brush it! However, filming solo with heavy equipment is harder than I thought. To make things worse, the zipper on my backpack broke on the first day. Thank you, Macquarie University. I'm realizing this could truly be a journey to the West. To me. I'm going to enter Yungang Grottos. Here is the monk who had built a lot of the signature caves. Look at this huge gate. We have a very dramatic entrance with elephants. Little man on the front wearing the clothes of Beiwei dynasty. Beiwei is a dynasty established by the nomadic people of Xianbei who ruled North China in the 5th century. And Datong was actually their first capital when they were sort of changing their nomadic way of life and meshing into the Chinese culture. It's actually very surprising to see this entrance because it wasn't there during my high school graduation trip. Originally, it was just the grotto, and now it's a whole scenic area with the natural beauty in it. This temple, Lingyan-si, is already reminding me of Wukong, though it's not the official, real location of it. You can already see that on the murals. The Buddha has very strong Western features. Greek reminds me of Egypt even. I find it to be very different from Buddhist architectures I normally see in China. There's a strong hint of nomadic aesthetics that's lean and robust, and the Silk Road brought influences from the West and Central Asia. And the entire temple sits on water. That's very clearly a choice based on Chinese feng shui. All that we've just seen is an imitation or modern imitation of the Beiwei royal temples. Here comes the main dish. We're starting from the smaller caves. We're going inside cage number 3, which is the largest cave. This is a very famous touristy place, so we need to have a little bit of strategy. My plan is to go all the way down to the 20th grotto and then work my way back gradually so that I could avoid all the people. 20th Buddha was exposed by an earthquake and accidentally became the signature of Yungang Grotto. Honestly speaking, I'm not that amazed by the game visual because I've seen the reality. It used to be a very sandy, dry area as is in the game, but now I'm happy that they planted more trees. These people, they're making a TikTok. They're all trying to form a clap with that Buddha on top. It's a very photogenic thing to do. This time I got really interested in the history behind all these Buddha. So before Tang Dynasty, there is a very long tumultuous period when people are just lost. They've had a good run with Confucianism and Taoism, and many more people are turning to Buddhism to seek some counsel in all these turmoil. It's not easy to preserve these statues. Many were stolen or faded for weather. This one is in repairment and people are peeking in. These wooden structures are built in Qing Dynasty, which adds a different layer, and it becomes a precious antique itself, which is kind of funny. It's nice to see all these dynasties are all trying to preserve the grotto through time. It's like a kind of relay. The next part is like a history class, but trust me, it's worth it. You're not just seeing a statue of the Buddha, it's also a representation of a Beiwei emperor. Each statue incorporates the facial and body feature of a specific emperor. By this, they're declaring that they're no longer nomads from the north. They actually worship the Buddha just like their Han Chinese subjects. It seems to me this young dynasty is kind of anxious to gain legitimacy. Now this one is the most colorful one. It's called the Music Grotto. There's an entire band and dancing crew. This is what you get for a concert in the 5th century. This is a double structure, so after having a very loud party outside, you go inside into this room that's more calm and collected. The Buddha is already Chinese-fied, wearing Chinese clothes. These little Buddha represents the patrons. They put themselves inside of the grotto to be alongside both the Buddha and their emperor. Now this one is special. It's more feminine because it's built under Queen Mother Feng. She was a true power holder for 25 years. Being a Han Chinese herself, she further transformed this nomadic dynasty into a Confucius one. You can see very physically that in this grotto there are more Han Chinese elements such as the clothes and this tower that mimics a wooden pagoda. Another change during Queen Mother Feng is the prevalence of this double structure because she shares her power with her son. You have double grottos like this and two Buddhas facing each other sitting like this. This one is the largest and the grandest, built in the height of Beiwei dynasty by Emperor Xiaowen in honor of his emperor father, who was said to be murdered by Queen Mother Feng. This time I understand that it's not just stone carvings and statues, it's a living history book of Beiwei Dynasty right in front of you. So having Wukong to question and rebel against Buddhism is really symbolic. Having a coffee, and I can tell you every guy see me with this stick, they are envious to the core. 耍一下，就刚才跟他，刚才那小哥呢？来，你们俩对战一下。Tourists are swarming in at the moment. This is my first time flying a drone outside, like officially. It's nerve-wracking, but it paid off. I'm starting to know my way around all the equipment. I packed less and I'm using this as a sort of climbing stick. I came with this. This is actually the tourist bus, the tourist shuttle of Datong City. So today I'm going to Yingxian Muta. It's a wooden pagoda, a wooden structure that has survived 1,000 years. But unfortunately, it is going to collapse. It's reminding me of Venice, a city that would sink in 200 years. Wow, it's so peaceful just by looking at it. It's the tallest and the oldest wooden pagoda in all the world, built in 1056. It stands at 67 meters, the equivalent of about 22 floors. But not a single nail was used. Look at all the birds nesting on top of it. It's making it sacred almost. That's what I love about Shanxi buildings. So in sync with nature. It's like the birds have been living in them for thousands of years. Wow. I'm going around it. Sadly though, this is going to collapse, and not because it's old, but people made modifications on it last century and it's destroying its structure. I see the Wukong statue there. People are taking photos with Wukong here. Now I'm going inside. Like Yungang Grottoes, this is also a royal temple, but to a different dynasty, the Liao, established some 500 years later by another nomad people called Qidan. It has a little green mustache on it. Beautiful murals all around. I'm going around it. It is huge. This is color from 1,000 years ago. Oh, he is cute. I like this dragon. It looks kind of silly. We cannot go upstairs now for conservation reasons. That's it for the morning. Now I'm going to hop onto the same city shuttle that we took before and rush to the next Wukong destination. Wow. I've arrived at Quankong Temple. This is going to be my lunch from here in front of the entrance. I found a nice little table where I can eat my lunch. I see it! It's there! This is the Hanyin Temple that hangs onto a cliff. It's built in the 5th century as the Winggang Guotou. And this mountainous area is Hengshan, one of the 5 most famous mountains in China. Found the official Wukong photo booth.
一朝书怀平困气，午夜朝气妙让气。
I somehow end up being the photo booth myself.
当道具了。
Oh no, look at this line! So many people. The line goes all the way up there.
那只不测其祸，期待兮，那荒漠孽畜再回击。
Here comes the climb. I couldn't talk to you a lot up there because I was saving my life. Many times I'm just climbing with both my hands and feet. Wow, this is really steep. I really need to be careful. That's not frightening at all for me. There's still a line. Unfortunately, this is really narrow. Just 1 person, 2 person at most. And the cliff, there it is. It says here, please do not shake the vertical pillar. You would think they support this structure, but actually they are very shaky. The true barriers are these horizontal ones deep into the rock. I am getting a little bit shaky here right now. Don't look back, just don't look back.
隔你远点上边，你把我也蹬翻了。
The stair is so steep. Oh my god, we are on the 3rd floor now. This is the 3-religion hall. I was most impressed because you can find Taoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism side by side. They're so well mixed and internalized in me already, so it's nice to see the starting point. Oh god. This is the 3 officials hall specifically dedicated to Taoism. It's exactly this rich blend of traditions that creates the fascinating world of Wukong. I really needed that rest. You can see that the rooftop is still colorful and shiny. That's because, like Yungang Grotto, it has gone through major restorations in later dynasties.
我的天哪！对，然后给他弄了一张蜘蛛网，他就说那个怎么样？再看一遍。
That's the place where a monk sleeps back then, or an officer.
我觉得100块钱收少了。
你想收1000块吗？
这真的是，你看着小，真的是太壮观了。你拍点这个地方。你不苦吗？
恐啊！
我是真有点苦吗？
So we are going up again. There are also 3 stores. I'm sort of setting into this kind of atmosphere. Finally! On the cliff, it dodged rain, flood, and invaders for 1500 years. The bus is leaving at 5 o'clock. I have to be hurry now. How you say Dhaka in English? This is a popular tourist thing to do. As I'm heading back, the tour guide on the city shuttle gave us some suggestions as to where to eat, so I decided to finally treat myself in my busy schedule. This restaurant is inside of the ancient city. Obviously, with such a great history, Datong is also the cuisine center for Shanxi. And after this long day, I can literally eat everything that's put in front of me. Today's agenda is all inside of the ancient city. There are 4 places where Wukong took inspiration from, and they are all in walking distance. Now I'm entering the first temple, Huayan Temple.
直接看屏幕就行了，不用扫码来。
Oh, 好。
认证成功。
Oh, 这么好。Now you can just scan your face. I think Datong did put in a lot in tourism. Now I just take a tour around it. This is the place with the famous 托塔天王. So majestic. Huayan Temple turned out to be this sprawling temple complex. Just imagine you're Wukong strolling among all these Buddhas. It's built in 1038 in Liao Dynasty, the same dynasty as the wooden pagoda that we saw before. The murals are painted in Ming and Qing Dynasty, roughly during Renaissance. Combined with the statues that's both realist and divine, it's almost like a Sistine Chapel of Buddhism. The architecture clearly has both Khitan and Han influence, and it's fun to see these girls taking photos in traditional clothes, cosplaying. They're like part of the experience. Wow. Not a single one is the same. Wow, the murals all made up stories about the Buddha. Murals on this hall is very Instagrammable. More than 150 teachers and students of the Central Academy of Fine Arts worked on it collectively for 3 years. Yeah, I think it is. A lot of people taking photos. They're all trying to touch it. And finally, the game players here must be waiting for this. 大雄宝殿 The Grand Hall is really grand. Constructed in the 10th century, it was burned down and rebuilt and maintained throughout dynasties, making it the largest surviving Buddhist halls of its era. I can smell the wooden fragrance. This space feels very roomy because it uses a genius technique called column reduction. I can see all the worshippers just gather and pray here. The murals are from Qing Dynasty and the statues from Ming Dynasty. They're leaning forward so that the dust wouldn't fall straight on top of them. And they can have a clean face. That's clever. Just like 10 minutes walk, 5 minutes walk. It's a very pleasant walk inside of Ancient City, and now we're going to see the Nine Dragon Wall. Built in the 14th century at the front gate of the Prince Palace, it is the largest screen wall in all of China. Its job is to block out evil spirits as well as nosy folks from peeking inside. 9 glazed tile dragons with their colorful scale flex imperial power. You can see there's a church right behind this below. It's quite striking to see them side by side. We're going to our third Wukong destination today, which is the Fahua Temple. I know a lot of temples, just like when I was traveling in Europe, is church after church, but this is a nice city walk line. It's already 4:30ish. I didn't get to see the entirety of this temple, but it's always nice to see this laughing fella. Mila is the Buddha of the future. There isn't anything in this world that his belly cannot hold. Now I'm rushing to my last destination, which is Shanhua Temple. There you can find a very facially expressive statue there. That's very hilarious. And I really need to be hurried because I want to get that sunset look to fly my drone. Bad news, it has already been closed. But that's travel. That's the truth of travel. Well, just look at this. How vast. And it's just me here. Turned out I stumbled into the main gate at its closing hour. I ran into the manager locking the door, actually, and he let me out. I missed the sunset, but hey, I have this all to myself, which is pretty good. Well, however much you plan, there will be surprises, like this one. So what is to comprehend nothingness? What is Wukong? I don't play video games myself. Its world is a void to me. But without this void, I wouldn't know my limit. Finally! I wouldn't learn to fly a drone. Yeah, it's shiny! And and I wouldn't find so much kindness.
看拉链坏了，谢谢。
It's how you choose to face the void, knowing it's a void after all. Knowing that the world is nothing, you are nothing. Then, how you play this game.